I'm a reporter. For more than 3 decades, I've written newspaper and magazine stories and a book about HIV/AIDS as it has robbed the health and lives of millions of people worldwide. Many were my friends. I decided this would be my beat back in 1986 when I was still in journalism school. By then, I had already lost 2 friends, men in their 20s like me. It was the year that Bill, the man I loved, found out he was positive. I was afraid I might be infected myself. All around me, I saw a terrifying event unfolding. My role would be to tell the stories of the people the pandemic touched. I started informing myself on every aspect of HIV/AIDS, reading the literature, and interviewing activists, scientists, and people living with the virus. And I reported the terrible physical and emotional suffering, the extraordinary acts of bravery and charity, and the amazing spiritual transformations I witnessed. But despite all I knew, I never truly knew what I was writing about. As a gay man, I wasn't completely a detached observer, because HIV/AIDS affected so many people close to me and in my community. Yet the stories I told were always their stories. I could watch and listen and share with readers what I saw and heard. Being HIV negative myself, though, I had only a limited understanding of even my closest friends' experiences. Until October 27th, 2005, that is. That's the day I found out I had HIV. Now I'm not just a reporter, now I'm a reporter living with the same lethal microbe that unleashed so much fear, sorrow, and heroism in the world, and killed so many of my friends. I'm also still a reporter who recognizes an unusual story when I see it. I knew that veteran AIDS reporter learns he has it was such a story. I emailed my editor at the Washington Post health section and shared what I started calling my news. "Oh shit," he replied. That summed it up pretty well. He put me in touch with the Post's Outlook section. They wanted the story. My HIV coming out story ran in the Washington Post Sunday Outlook section on May 14th, 2006, including a 1991 photo of Bill and me. I never expected that year to mark the 25th year of the HIV/AIDS pandemic and the 20th anniversary of my own first articles on AIDS by describing how my perspective has shifted from observer to participant. The shift took place exactly 3 weeks after my 47th birthday. On my close and by then late friend Rich Rassi's October 27th birthday, my doctor called with the results of the blood work for my annual checkup. For all the years I've been seeing him, our annual phone call began with pleasantries and the latest readings on cholesterol and such. This time was different. I could tell from the tenseness I sensed in his voice over the phone. "I have bad news on the HIV test," he said. I felt the ground fall out from under me. I'd probably written about this in other people's lives hundreds of times, people talking about a time before and a time after their HIV diagnosis. Now I knew that the words I'd wielded like a shield against the reality of what I was seeing, hearing, and reporting, truly can't describe this moment of sickening self-awareness. I didn't know what to think. It was when I thought of Glenn, the man I was beginning to love, and the thought, now he won't want me, that I started to cry. When I went to my doctor's office later that afternoon for more blood work, he advised me that it was pointless to try to pinpoint exactly how it had happened. Better to focus on dealing with this new reality, he told me. But that reality seemed surreal because I felt so well. I had no warning signs, such as night sweats or swollen lymph nodes, to tell me something was wrong. I had no clue at the time that I was one of the estimated 13% of Americans living with HIV who don't know they are infected. Suddenly, I wrote in my journal, it's all as personal gets. My very person, my body, my health, my life, my sense of security, my fears of illness and death. I wrote that, but I was only beginning to grasp it. Part of me was still the dispassionate observer, looking on, writing about somebody else's life. Then, a week later, I received more shocking news. My tests revealed a relatively low viral load, suggesting a recent infection. But the T cells, the white blood cells that HIV infects and destroys, were also very low, only 198, compared with 600 to 1,200 in a healthy person. I knew what that meant. It was a fact I had cited in so many stories. A T cell count below 200 indicates a damaged immune system and risk of life-threatening infection. I also knew that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, at the time considered a T cell count below 200 an AIDS diagnosis. I was floored. This is so 1980s, I said to my doctor. This isn't supposed to happen to gay men in the US who get tested regularly. I thought that was exactly what I had been doing with each of my annual checkups. It turned out my doctor hadn't tested me for HIV for at least the 3 previous years. I was frank with him about my sexual behavior, and neither of us considered it particularly risky. Perhaps that's the reason he didn't ask me for the HIV test, and I didn't ask for one either. I shared my news with close friends who affirmed my view that HIV should not define me. AIDS had overshadowed my entire adult life and all the years since I came out the summer it first appeared in 1981. I was determined not to let it redefine me as I know myself and present myself to the world. I instinctively eschewed any idea of being a victim. I know too well that even approaching 4 decades into the HIV/AIDS pandemic, openness about having HIV can still get a person killed in some parts of the world. And I know there are gay men in this country who will resist believing that my story could ever become their own. I too resisted believing the stories I reported would ever become my story. I told myself I was smart, cautious, perhaps even spared, so I could bear witness as a reporter. But my perspective has changed. Now I understand what I've seen and heard from others, and I can only try to make those without firsthand experience understand, not by writing as a detached observer, but by writing straight from the heart.